Good afternoon, Dr. Greer. It's so nice for you to be here.
Mhm.
It's great to see you. Can you give us some updates about what's been going on lately?
Sure, good to see you, Raven. By the way, Raven is sort of our administrative executive now, and she's worked with us since 1998. So welcome to Raven. And much appreciation for your help over these decades, 27 years it's been,
Yep.
something like that. So 26. So yeah, we're doing a big event in London for those of you who are want to come in the European area. It's the first time I've been to Europe or the UK in 9 years, and due to a number of situations, but we'll be there for a big event on September 8th, which is a Sunday. We're going to do a whole afternoon workshop from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. and then a London premiere screening of the documentary The Lost Century from 8:30 to 10:30. And it's all being held at the Lighthouse Theatre there in London. And so you're all invited to come. I hope you can spread the word and get a lot of folks out for this event. We're also doing a VIP dinner that evening for those of you who want to support the Disclosure Project and the Archive Fund, because that's what that dinner is for, during that evening as well. Of course, if you come to the dinner, it means you won't be going to the film premiere for London for The Lost Century because their times are coinciding.
Right.
So that's going to be great. I'm going to do a whole afternoon workshop. It's going to be two sections. One is going to be about an update on disclosure and also a pivot towards the European disclosure. One of the reasons I'm coming to London is that there are some senior officials with the British government, I can't see more than that, who want to be briefed on what's happening and to share some information about what they have discovered is going on in the European Union with the suppression of this effort and some other issues. So that's something we'll be doing while we're in London. But I thought while we're there, might as well do something for the public to get an update and come out and join together. So that'll be the first half of the 4-hour program. The second half is going to be really focused on sort of the CE5 contact efforts around the world and how to really get that going more strongly in the European Union and the United Kingdom. And so we hope people come from all over Europe. I think the theater can hold several hundred or 1,000 people. So it'll be great to see you guys there. So one of the updates I want to just touch on is that we are continuing to discover and get intelligence from sources, military mainly, sources on black sites. And you'll see in our Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, and we can put the link here in the write-up,
Okay.
we'll have, you'll see that we continue to add sites. So for example, a couple weeks ago, we got the entrance locations to both the Dugway Proving Ground facility, underground facility, and the entrance point on a map for the what's called the Anthill. Now, the Anthill, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's in the eastern, be east of the Edwards complex going out in the desert, and it's an entry point to a very large complex underground. And the reason it's called the Anthill, it's a small area that you can go in, but underneath is like an ant colony of tunnels and facilities underneath, like an ant farm. So it's called the Anthill. So those are ones that we've recently gotten specific entrance points for that are being included in the archive and also being provided to military and law enforcement personnel. Another significant update, we had a meeting while we were doing the Temecula event last month in California with the partner in a law firm that has successfully prosecuted RICO civilian cases, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization cases. And we're hoping that this will begin to go forward with some strategies that we're working out still on how to take on these illegal projects on behalf of the public. One of the, of course, angles of attack on that is that there was a federal court ruling that people had the right to a decent environment that was upheld in, I think, a Montana case. And the suppression of these free energy technologies that would save the biosphere and eliminate poverty is certainly relevant to that ruling. And so we also have other cases. We're going to go into this more at the event in London, but people need to just a preview on this in case you haven't heard about some of this yet. We have a team of people who are defecting from a cell, a covert operation that's very senior, dealing with these black sites. And one of the teams is dealing specifically with the areas where they knock down with electromagnetic pulse weapons and scalar weapons, extraterrestrial vehicles, as well as where they have a very advanced program called a P3 program that are psionic, is basically consciousness technology interface that are being used by covert programs to track and to take over the command and navigation of ET craft and bring them into range and hit them with these illegal, I might point out, electromagnetic pulse weapons. So there's a lot of that. I'm going to actually show the photo and video of the entrance to these sites. I was about 11 months ago in a chopper, classified airspace, an area that routinely has a TFR, temporary flight restriction area, put up over it when they close the airspace over these sites, when they're doing two things. One, testing the man-made UFOs or ARVs, anti-gravs that come up. And I'll describe how they come up and what looks like a runway that isn't a runway, what that's used for. And then the other part of it is they use that same facility and the same testing equipment, the electromagnetic pulse weapons they use on our own man-made UFOs to target and try to strike extraterrestrial vehicles. And I was told one of the sites I was over, about once or twice a year, they successfully kill, quote unquote, a craft and bring it down. And the people who are part of that project are really coming forward, and there are more of them. And I have just learned that there are 3 more people who are coming forward, including with information on criminal activity and criminal cases. So this is a big breaking part of disclosure, simply because it's another angle separate from the legal effort from the attorneys to sue these operators and corporations, is the fact that there are people in that system, very highly placed, who know it's time for this to come out. And depending on whether there's a lot of foot dragging that continues with the Congress and whoever the next president is, that they would act unilaterally, in other words, on their own, to go in, liberate, as it were, this material, bodies, ET bodies, craft, man-made and extraterrestrial, and bring them forward. And separate from that, I'll talk about the special access project that's been stood up that is extending whistleblower protection, and also a team that is being provided intelligence by the Disclosure Project and the briefings that we've done, that we continue to provide for an eventual law enforcement move on these illegal corporations and sites. So, of course, the sausage making, as it were, that goes into any federal process is laborious and kind of slow, but I do think that this is moving forward in a very good way. And the more that we can do to bring this information out to the public, and then have further people come forward with intelligence that gives anyone who's going to move on these facilities as much actionable intelligence as possible, is key. So anyone listening who is part of, or has been in the past, part of a covert program, corporate or governmental, dealing with the UAP, UFO issue, you should contact us, because we can extend protection. And we also need if you have actionable intelligence, meaning detailed information, such as I've just mentioned previously, about putting, like, where are the assets located? what are the entry points? What's located where? What are they going to encounter when they go through door X or underground elevator Y? And this is the kind of information that's very important if you're going to get these illegal projects under any kind of legal constitutional authority, and without which, there's very little hope for this issue getting solved. And the information coming out properly, but also the technologies coming out. I mean, obviously, we for years have wanted to have a new energy lab, but no one's ever funded it. If this technique or strategy works, those materials would be brought out, and of course, we would be very involved in the disclosure of those and the receiving of them. So, since our group would be the primary recipient of these materials, so that's sort of it's quite dramatic what's been going on the last year. And so in London, what I want to do on September 8th in the afternoon there is to unpack all of this and go into some great detail, but also then to go to the next level of, the transition, as it were, from what's happening on these sort of levels, but then what can everyone else do? Because ultimately, I think, some of you heard me share this story back in I believe it was 78, that I had this lucid dream of a future where there was a landing of an ET craft being protected by the military. So they had transformed from shooting them down to protecting the airspace. And there was an open contact event, broad daylight. It looked like it was at White Sands, seen by the whole world. So I tell people, yeah, things are very off the track now, but they can be moved back on the track. And what I'm seeing, which is I think hopeful, is that the elements of that vision that I had in a lucid dream back, that would have been 46 years ago, seem to all be lining up now. So it's very encouraging in many ways, even though it's a little bit spooky how it's happening. But nevertheless, it's my job to do that. So that's something that people need to understand, that when people gather in consciousness and higher consciousness and meditation and engage in our peaceful T3 contact, right? The psionic consciousness technology interface, which is really what we're doing. I mean, most of you, if you read my early work from 1991, where I talk about consciousness assisted technologies and technologies that assist consciousness, which ETs use for navigation, communication, all of that. I mean, it's not at the speed of light, it's at the speed of thought, instantaneous and quantum entanglement. And that has always been the foundational program of the whole disclosure movement, was putting together, millions of people who go out and do this, because it not only changes the whole so-called morphogenic field of collective human consciousness, but it also shows the ETs that there are a growing number of people who are willing to engage peacefully rather than just shooting them down with directional energy weapons and nonsense. So that's going to be an important part, and that's actually how we'll conclude the afternoon, is doing that and do a group meditation and CE5 contact event there in the center of London. We'll see what happens that night. Who knows? There might be some sightings, but I think it'll be fun for those of you who can make it. If you can't be there in person, we're going to have a webinar capability so that you can, if anywhere in the world, you can click on and see that whole event from 3 p.m. London time till 7 p.m. And that's so you can do that if you can't make it in person there in London.
Great. Yeah, we'll put all the links in so you can see how to access all of that. So
right, yeah, and it'd be great to see a lot. I know we have a lot of wonderful friends and supporters on the continent and in the UK, and I haven't been there in so long. I just haven't had the time to get over there, and I put off this trip to go meet with these British government officials in the capital there in London because I got injured, as you all know, in last October. So now that I'm back and rather up and about again, now we're going to do it. So that's why we've organized this. And I think there's, I'm sure all of you know who Brian Rose is with London Real. I think he's going to be hosting the event and introducing me, and it'll be great to see him there as well. So it should be a fun event in the afternoon there in London for everybody. Now, one other update that I want to share is we are doing a whole week-long CE5 contact event here in Virginia. And we can put those dates. Now, the people in person are going to be a relatively small group because there's so many people who want to come to these. But what we're going to do, and we've never done this, this is an experiment. We're going to have up on this remote site, we have 685 acres that we got, and we have opened up a contact site on this private land that's surrounded on three sides by national forests, about 2 million acres of national forest. And we're going to have our primary group up there with a whole camera array. We're going to have 5 cameras with angles, lens, so that they can record the whole sky and everything going on. But then we're going to have another camera and a webinar that will be broadcast from the site all night that you can be part of, as well as the afternoon. So in the afternoon sessions, what we do is that I go through the information and remote viewing training techniques and consciousness techniques and information exchange and all that. But at night, it's an entire contact, CE5 contact event under the stars. But that way we can have like a whole week of people from all over the world doing this at the same time we are, which creates this big shift in consciousness. The so-called 1% effect can happen when you have enough people doing it, where it moves all of human consciousness and the future of humanity in a positive direction. So this is something we've never done we've done it for a couple nights, like at weekend events. We've never done it for a whole, 6-night event like this. So we'll see. Now, of course, we're here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so there's a chance we could have rain, but we'll still do it. I mean, we're just going to go for it. It should be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys can join us remotely, because you can look at what happens, if you're on a time zone that doesn't work. We're going to be obviously on Eastern time zone here in the mountains of Virginia. But if you are in another time zone, you can do it on your own, with a group or by yourself, whenever that is, if you're in Australia or Europe or what have you. So that's another thing to remember. You'll be able to get all the information and see what happens, even if you can't do it in real time. So hopefully we'll have, this is, again, this first time we've ever done this, is to have an extensive contact week like this, that anyone in the world who wants to participate can participate during the afternoon and evening sessions.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for updating us on everything, and it's going to be exciting to be in London.
It will be, yeah. And I want to thank all the volunteers who will be helping us there. And Raven's going to come over, and it'll be a great time. I love the UK and Europe, and I'll actually be in France, Italy, and Switzerland prior to that for a while. But the event is in London, so hopefully folks can come in there and we can meet and have this great gathering there in the capital of Great Britain. And we'll be able to unpack a lot more of this information I just touched on, and it'll be great to reconnect with all the European and the UK supporters and CE5 people there.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Raven.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.